Awesome. Okay, welcome, and welcome back to those who've already been here. So for those of you who don't know what Galvanize is, I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are. Galvanize is a learning community for technology that brings together students, startups, and established companies. Specifically, our SF campus holds over 200 startups and roughly 130 coding students. And two of those coding programs include our 12-week immersive data science program and our year-long Masters in Data Science program. So if anyone is interested in hearing more about the programs or Galvanize in general, please feel free to reach out to me after the event with any questions that you have, or you can go to galvanize.com. So tonight we have a great line of speakers, and your moderator for tonight will be Andrew Berger, who's the co-founder of Azumo. Please help me welcome Andrew.
I didn't share anything with you. Thank you for looking it up. Okay, so thank you guys for showing up. Is there still a line up there, or has everyone made it down here? Do you know, Don? Are there still people waiting upstairs to come in? Okay, well, thank you. Guys, do you want to come over? Yeah. So I'm Andrew Berger, know some of you guys. Others not. I run Azumo, a development firm here in San Francisco. And we started the meetup group because we think it's cool technologies. We're waiting for one more person, Christina. And we've been organizing these events now for 4 months at least. And we enjoy conversational applications, bots, and there has been interest from the community on different topics. The last one we organized was around the Microsoft Bot Framework, a huge success. We learned a lot, and then from there, there was interest in learning more about how do we use NLP tools? Does it make sense? Which ones should we consider? What tools come in handy? And so then we decided to put together this panel. So thank you everyone for coming over. And well, I'll let each of you introduce yourself so that people know what you do. And then Christina will show up from API.ai, but she's still not here. So maybe we start with that, and then I have questions for each of you to get going, to break the ice, and then a discussion. And at the end, I'll open up for the audience to ask any type of questions. Mitch, do you want to start?
Hello. So my name is Mitchell Mason. I'm an offering manager on the Watson Conversation Service, which is part of the Watson Engagement Advisor offering. So it's all about natural language conversations. So how do you interact with an end user around really any use case? So every client's going to be a little different, whether it's tech support, health, retail, whatever it might be. How can we create a tool to easily create these type of services? And that's what conversation is really all about. And I came in through an acquisition a few years ago, and I've been there for 2 years now.
Hello, my name is Laurel, and I'm from PullString. I'm our AI engineer, and my specialty is NLP. We make an authoring platform for people to write chatbots without having to really dig into the technical details. So, if you're a writer or someone who's just interested in making a chatbot, you shouldn't have to learn to program just to make something that people can interact with. If you have a technical background, that's great. And certainly is easy for technical people to use as well. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Anthony Kessage. I'll be going by Tony though tonight because there's two of us. And I am with. Oh, you're going with Tony? Well, I claim it. I'm Tony. Sorry, I'm with Wit.ai. I've been with them for about just shy of 2 years, year and a half, somewhere in that range right now. We have a platform to help developers build a conversational NLP bots that do NLP understanding end-to-end instead of just one-shot, single-phrase analyses. The whole idea being that it makes it easy to build NLP bots without having to become an expert yourself. And, well, that's about that.
Azumo, guest up and up. Is that it? Isn't it? No? Yeah. I'm the other Tony. I'm the founder of Converse.ai, which is, funnily enough, a bot platform. We focus on enabling companies to build bots very easily for interacting with their customers across the entire customer journey. So that's things like pre-sales, customer service, post-sales, dealing with engagement, re-engagement, but basically anything where you might need to engage with the customer, either partially or fully automated with human escalation, we solve that. So NLP, integration with messaging platforms, conversation management, dialogue, the whole 9 yards basically.
Okay, I'm Xuedong Huang. I'm
Just
small
say.
startup in Microsoft Corporation. I lead the advanced technology group. So my group is responsible for a lot of speech and language services we're developing, including Louis that I will talk about. So I love you guys here. I flew all the way down from Seattle.
People just don't say what they do. Xuedong, are you the chief scientist?
I happen to be the chief speech scientist, yes.
At Microsoft. Okay, thank you for that. So,
I never use that title.
you don't use it, but it is what it is. I mean, people speak, and you're the head of that speech group. So then, let's start with a quick question for each one of you, and then we'll do more. Anthony, you start with an A, that's why. So, if you can talk about Facebook App a bit, and the relationship between WIT and Facebook App, is it possible that that service might get to non-operator activity within a period of time, all automated without human operators? Does it make sense?
Sorry.
Anything you want to discuss?
I have 3 microphones now. Yes, so just a little bit of context. I assume since this is a bot meetup, everybody knows, but Facebook M is a AI-assisted entity that we are building to live inside Messenger right now that is, there to help you out. You ask it to complete things or look things up for you, and it can do that. Right now, the way it works is it's the AI has a lot of suggestions and actually covers some set of what's going on, but we still have trainers around that will oversee the AI and the NLP, make sure it doesn't make mistakes, get too eager, throw the wrong response, that sort of thing. And then when you're actually asked to go do something that the AI can't do right now, the trainers can then step in and do it themselves, and the AI pays attention for future training data. Anyway, now that we have that out of the way, we are slowly building it out. Like there's always going to be a frontier of things that we can't do with it. And I say always, but maybe 5, 10, 15 years out, I'm gonna look back and think that this sounds kind of naive. But as for right now, we have been building it out with our test users, both, mostly throughout the Bay Area. And we have had a lot of growth. But in terms of actually automating everything, like that's not going to happen for quite a while. We can start with the simpler things like booking restaurants and looking up information and doing managing your calendars, giving you reminders. That's where we're starting in terms of understanding. But in terms of planning your wedding for you, or don't get me wrong, you get asked for this all the time.
I'm married.
We still definitely need humans there to help out at this point. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Break the ice and start with this. Thank you. So, Laurel, name for you. When we look at PullString, if you can describe PullString, I think you've been. How do you believe the tool can be helpful relative to other tools that we have here presenting, and how do you think you guys differentiate what you're doing currently?
So I think a little bit of background on our company is important here, which is that we used to specialize in making apps for kids, and that's really where we got started. It was this sort of blend of art and science of writing material that children would enjoy and interact with, and making it so, making a tool such that our engineers could work on the app and our writers could just write. They could make this conversational dialogue system without having to understand what are the intricacies of programming a dialogue system. So we've tried to make it such that you can program something simple, or not even program, write something, a simple bot that just has commands like, say hello, or say hello world, or something like that, but you can also do something, a very complex story. We recently published a Facebook experience called Jesse Humani that was you texting back and forth with this young adult woman whose life was not going that well, and she needed your help to make the decisions about her life. And that's a very complex and subtle story that has lots of branching that can get almost impossible to track if you're just trying to use Excel or something to write the story, and then to have it so that our writers could write that thing without having to worry about all the implementation details. That's really what we're making a tool for.
And can people use the tool similar to, for example, WIT, that folks can start using? Is PullString available to
It
developers?
hasn't quite launched yet.
Okay.
It's expected in the next couple months, I believe.
Okay, thanks. Tony, the Tony. So you've described a bit what Converse does, what the company does. Tell us a bit more, any type of metrics that you believe make sense when you're hearing. Hello, Christina.
Fashionably late.
Thank you for coming in.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, I'm Christina, and I'm the VP of Client Solutions at API.ai.
Thank you. So I'm starting with one question for each, and then we'll open up to more questions. So when folks start to use Converse, what metrics, improvement in metrics they might see? What is the best use case for someone adopting the tool, so that folks here have an idea of when they need to look at what you're offering?
Okay, so there's the kind of metrics they might like to see, and there's also the metrics that they should be tracking and possibly aren't thinking about. So the way we look at it is Converse can basically be used to, say, either semi or fully automate conversations. So that can be things like, I've got an FAQ question, right, let me divert that off so that a human never has to worry about it. But it could be you've got situations where, you've got a customer service agent that normally takes 10 minutes per ticket. That's something we've seen quite often as an average. And we look to go, okay, what parts of this can we automate to take that down from, say, 10 minutes to 3 minutes? Because it might well be that there's information we can gather, but then it still needs to go to a human. It might be that there is ways we can completely automate it and provide suggested answers. And if it gets stuck, then escalate it to a human. It might simply be that by actually asking certain questions, we can direct it to the absolute right human to go to as well. So they're all different models. So in general, what I look at is ultimately how many tickets, or how many simultaneous tickets, or how much time is ultimately being saved if you're looking at that specific case. But the metric you should really also be looking at if you're building things like this is where are customers getting stuck in these conversations. If you build these crazy long conversations where you're going back and forward and collecting data, are you reaching a point where halfway through the users are giving up and getting fed up and want to find a way to escalate to a human? If they are, is there a nice and easy way for them to do that? Because that's one of the challenges that we see with a lot of people is just, we'll just go and build this brilliant thing and then not actually understanding how to track the success metrics of it.
Human handoff, it's something that they could...
The human handoff's really important, because the beauty of having the ability to do human handoff in any system is the fact that on day one, your minimal viable success criteria is 0. The bot doesn't have to understand a thing, because it's not any worse than the day before. And then every day from then on, the more things it can answer, the more things you can train it, the better it can actually get. But you need that smooth level of human handoff, otherwise, can you imagine trying to roll out a bot on day one that didn't have that, and with a success criteria is 0? I don't think it would go very well.
Okay, thank you. So Xuedong, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. So you founded speech at Microsoft some years ago, many years ago. And so you've been exposed to the problematic of language for some time now. In the last 15, 20 years, what is the one or two largest breakthroughs that you've been exposed to, that you have faced, that you want to share here with the audience?
All right, thank you. I don't want to actually really tell you I'm old, and so it's fine. So I was on the faculty at the CMU in Pittsburgh. If you happen to know that in the school, we had a very strong computer science program. So I joined Microsoft, started speech. I was naive. We thought we can just get the speech adopted by offering API. So I don't know if you guys know, in Windows 95, we had a speech API on the Windows platform. That was 95. 20 years after that, Microsoft brought Project Oxford to market again. Now it's renamed Cognitive Services. So this is actually a sampling of 20 years or so AI from Microsoft Research. We had a speech, vision, language, all the assets we had to help web developers. So we have 20 API services spanning, all the areas you can think of on AI. So language understanding happens to be one of those services. We have actually 20. Okay. So the biggest thing I really think is cloud is important. You can see 20 years ago we had a speech API on Windows, and of course you can say speech recognition technology wasn't as good. Today it's much better thanks to deep learning. So the second thing I would say, deep learning really changed everything and dramatically improved performance. I think if you want to transcribe just the conversational speech over the phone, I want to emphasize over the phone because usually when you use the phone, it's close enough to the microphone. The computer system should actually reach human parity very soon. So that's actually a major historical landmark.
So that's your forecast then?
I put my name on it after working on this for 30 years.
Thank you.
Two things, cloud absolutely is key. So Microsoft Cognitive Services is all cloud-based services. And we can improve that every day, actually behind the scene. The second one is deep learning is changing everything.
So would you say Louis is the current main initiative for you guys, or is there any other that we have not been exposed that is worth mentioning? We've been exposed to Louis, that's the commercial product that you guys are supporting.
Louis is one of the 22 services we have, but behind the Louis, of course, everything is going to change because it's a cloud-based API. But Louis is actually fairly simple to use. They are, I don't know if I can say that, roughly 15,000 companies using Louis today. So it's quite popular because the service is less than 1 year old. Even Louis is not GA yet. It's still in beta.
Okay, thank you for that. So, hey, Mitch, coming on to you. The Watson offering has been around, and there have been some recent changes from NLP, dialogue, APIs, retrieve and rank, to a new delivery framework, product, features. Can you describe a bit that change?
Yeah.
Let me ask people, is someone from the audience using currently any Watson APIs? No, let's do the same for the rest. PullString, probably not. Wit.ai, folks using Wit? Great, thank you. Converse, probably not. Here,
There might be some.
Converse, folks using Converse? Okay, great. Louis? Great, thank you. API.ai? Okay. So for the recording, I think it's just 5 hands in each, more or less, so not a lot of information. So I think there's interest to learn more. By the way, there are 2 chairs up here in the front if people want to sit up front. Sorry.
Yeah, we've been in the virtual agent space on the enterprise side for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years now. And we started out with, hey, we have this great technology, we won Jeopardy, people want to pay to use that same technology. Very hard to use, very expensive to train, took racks and racks of servers, wasn't cloud-based. We said, okay, we need to improve that first. So we made it easier, or cheaper to run, but still technically it was very hard to use. And this solution became Watson Engagement Advisor. It was not a publicly available service, it was sold to enterprises only for a very large dollar amount. And we said, hey, it's still great, but it's hard to use. The clients can't train it. We need our experts. You know, they're all PhDs to train it. Normal people can't use it. It's too difficult. But technically, it was very powerful. So let's simplify it. That eventually became Natural Language Classifier and Dialogue, which are two services on Bluemix today. But they were still separate services doing two completely separate things. Dialogue was a very simple rules-based chat service. So anyone can write rules to create a chat, but it's not very scalable. Natural Language Classifier did the intent classification, but didn't actually handle the dialogue side of giving a response, couldn't really hold a conversation. It said, this is what you meant, but that was it. So we saw developers combining those two together. We eventually wrote an SDK that did it for them. We said it's still not enough to have two tools that are mostly easy to use, but you're still going back and forth between these two places. You know, if I see an error in one, is it because of bad data from the first, or vice versa? So now we have this new service, Watson Conversation, which was inspired by those two to be a unified tooling experience, all about the simplicity. So in a really short summary, we focused so much on the technology, nothing on the user experience. And in the end, that meant no one wants to use it. Even if it's one of the smartest out there, it's too hard to use. So now we are reversing that to making it a little bit simpler to use while not sacrificing any of the technology.
Is that GA already?
Yes, it went GA on Monday.
Great. Yeah, and thank you for that. Christina, thank you for making it. Did you drive from the south?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
lots of traffic.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Go figure.
But I think it's worth it. So,
I hope so. I'll give you a review afterwards.
thank you. So I think your background is electrical engineering.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
different from CS.
Yes.
Now, how do you bring in what you learned, maybe yes, maybe not, academically and experience, and how did you end up at API.ai? And
Absolutely.
tell us a bit more. about
Yeah,
that.
so does everybody here, first of all, know what API.ai is? Can I see a show of hands of who knows what it is? So a decent amount of you. For those of you who don't, we are a developer toolset that allows anybody to very easily create conversational interfaces. I can even brag that I literally had my little 8-year-old brother build bots this past week when I was in Connecticut, and I have a video of it. It's the cutest thing ever. But yeah, so I finished up my master's at Stanford in electrical engineering, focusing in communication systems. And then I came across API.ai actually right before it launched in 2014. And I joined as the platform lead. So basically, when I came across this technology, I just had it was so clear how this was going to empower the future of all different types of scenarios. Since I was in high school, I was really into like intelligent environments and smart home. And this is the only type of technology that's going to enable that in the future. And Amazon Alexa has been a really great piece of technology paving the way for that. You want to be able to walk into your home and say, breathe up into 400 degrees, turn on the garage light, and turn on the light in Billy's room, or whatever, in natural language. We work with one of the largest cable companies. If you guys have working, I don't know if I can say. But you know, the voice remotes in the future, those are going to be powered by us. So hopefully you'll be able to be confident in interacting with your home in a natural and really easy way.
Great. Thank you. Thanks. So now, maybe more overall questions that we can handle. There's a lot of discussion of when should we use NLP tools, when should we not use NLP, what could be a good use case that makes sense to bring in some natural. For example, in a prior event, Mikhail from the Messenger platform team explicitly said, hey, if you don't know about NLP, just don't use it. The experience might not be great. And here we have 6 panelists related to these technologies. So I think we could have a good discussion around when does it make sense to explore that, and when does it not make sense?
I don't agree with his statement, but I agree with the premise.
And I'm sure I changed the statement.
Yeah.
It's not exactly how he said it, but
I don't agree with your statement. But I agree with the premise that NLP done poorly or badly implemented, whether that's the platform or people training it, is a worse experience than not having it at all. But I think people should be able to take advantage of NLP if it's easy enough to understand, but they don't want to start thinking about contexts and entities and intents and all the other billion different bits of terminology that even we can't all agree on what's called what. And so trying to train users on that is a real challenge. The other problem isn't so much whether you use NLP or not, it's how to use conversation. And for those handling here who might have seen the presentation I did at a Slack event a couple of months ago, I did a demonstration of how to build a bot for doing SSH that was doing conversation form, and it basically took like 6 question answers backwards and forwards to do anything. It was an exaggerated example of a bad idea. So it's partly about not using conversation where conversation doesn't fit, but it's also about, it's simple things like if you're looking for a yes or a no for a customer, then yeah, use a button, use something that allows you to let them, direct them and easily know that they've got one of 2 options. If you're looking to ask them what kind of food they want for dinner, then you've got a few choices. You could try and do some directive thing using rich media, you could try and do something just using language, but perhaps having both is possible. If you're looking where they want to go on a flight and they need to fly to a particular airport, well, good luck doing that in a carousel. You might be there for a little while. So NLP really does need to be there as a backstop for certain things, but it really does come down to the use case, in my opinion.
Another place that I find it very useful to jump in and use NLP is places where you might be extracting entities from a larger body of text, but not trying to actually understand everything that's going on. Your user has already told you, this is my intent. And NLP is great for figuring out intent. That's a phenomenal way to do classification, but that's like the harder step. You can use it in the first step. We already have like an understanding of what the user wants to do. An example I like to use is Hello Hipmunk. This is a service that Hipmunk has that you can forward an email to them. They'll pull out of the email all of the information about you saying, I want to go on a vacation for this weekend for this amount of time, in a natural conversation that you're having with your friends, loved ones, whoever. And since you've sent it to Hello Hipmunk, they already understand, I want to book a flight, and then they can very easily look through there and say, oh hey, New York, San Francisco, 2 o'clock, Saturday, what have you, and pull out all the information you need and pre-populate a form, and then give you back results or prompt you for anything additional that they might need. And the reason that they can do this very solidly is they know that you want a flight. They're not going to accidentally screw up and try to send you a flight when really you wanted to get a bus ticket or something like that.
When I think about NLP or the use cases that really require it, I think about the most frustrating scenarios ever, which have destroyed our perception of voice interfaces, and those are in car, where you only have specific voice commands that you're able to use, and it makes end users frustrated. They can't remember them, they don't say them correctly or whatever, and it gives them no flexibility. Of course, when you're looking at messengers, you can consider having buttons and things like that in rich media, but when you're moving past that, which is the next stage after bots and all of this, and that's going to be voice interfaces, and you're not going to have that same option. So you have to have natural language understanding to be able to actually intelligently process and communicate with the end user.
Just a very, very quick interjection on that. I agree with you about voice in cars.
Tony, here you go. We talked about this.
Yeah, I know. Behave. I agree with you about it in cars, and I agree with you at the home. I'm awaiting my Echo being delivered tomorrow. I don't see voice as being a wide-ranging panacea for things beyond text. I see text as being that solution, and voice being better than it in certain circumstances, like in the home, in the car.
There's room for voice, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely room for text, voice.
Yeah, there is.
I don't want to get there, but maybe Xuedong will, direct.
So I think NLP is fairly broad. It depends on how you define what it is, right? I think some of the great NLP applications, I would say, is search. You have Google, you have Bing. You cannot say they're not an NLP problem, right? Another great case is translation. And really, now you have a Skype translator, you can just talk to it, you can converse with someone in another end without speaking the same language. It looks like this panel is really talking about conversational bot. That's one small area of NLP, right? For this one, I think they are probably Also cases like you have Siri, Cortana, Alex, Amazon Echo, Cortana, almost all the major players having their conversational agent. And there's one that's very popular in China. It's called the Xiao X. That is not doing anything, just keep you busy chatting and killing time. That is very popular because people have a lot of time to kill. So really depends on how you want to define what the best case is. It's really just wide open. But in the end, if I look at all those technology, they're fairly shallow. And most of the search engines, they're not using much NLP technology. They're using statistics, click signals. And even for the most of the conversation chatbot today, to a large extent, they are relying on IR technology. So this is wide open. I believe, once again, deep learning is going to change everything, including NLP. So the biggest paradigm shift is coming.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the most important questions to ask when you're deciding whether to use NLP or not is about your audience. What is your audience expecting? If you're dealing with a very technical audience, they may very well just be expecting, a set of commands that they say precisely this way in order to get it to do what they want. Like a terminal. Versus a less technical or maybe younger audience, talks to a computer and doesn't realize that it doesn't have the same, or until very recently, doesn't have the same ability to understand language. And so understanding when a person, say, messages your app, are they expecting to be talking to a real human? And then you're trying to either find a way to answer their, say, frequently asked question, and if you don't have the answer, reroute them, or are they expecting to get a list of commands that they can then execute precisely as they want? If you're trying to order a taco and you can do that more efficiently by just clicking a couple buttons than typing in I want a taco with all these things, and you have to go through several iterations of okay, what address do you want to order that to? How many do you want? When do you want it delivered? Then it's not worth doing an NLP interface. If that's less efficient, don't do it.
Just to continue from that, I had a client call a few weeks ago. He wanted to do a mortgage application over the phone and automate it. And it was a 45-question interview, one at a time. And I said, are you sure your users want you to call them? Because it wasn't people calling in. He was going to automatically call out to other people. Me while I'm eating dinner usually. And I want to ask them 45 questions, one by one. And I said, that's probably not the way you want to do it. We have other ways we can help give a better user experience. And I think that's one of the better ways to think about it is, what's going to improve the user experience that you already have a lot of times. A lot of times we are just taking unstructured text in a conversation and structuring it to do some kind of known process. It's already out there. One that I always really advocate for is on a website. I have 10 tabs, each with 5 subsections. So figuring out where I want to go when they redesign their website, every other month, it gets kind of frustrating when really I should be able to log in, ask a question of what I want to do, and it points me to it. And it's a relatively simple use case too. So I think there's a simplicity in user experience.
I want to support that. And if you think about the paradigm shift, IVR really never took off. And people actually loved the screen. So when you have a speech as input and the screen as output, that's generally actually much preferred media. So, but Amazon Echo is actually exceptional because it's, it doesn't have a screen, but they got a lot of people like this standalone, just on the side information appliance. And it's different from a telephone, because telephone you have to hold the telephone, you have to call. This one is always on, always open, always ready, even though it doesn't do a lot of things. That actually really is remarkable to enhance what your experience is about. So I want to actually add that on the GUI, most frequent menus are already designed by the designer. So it's easy to click, you get the information, you can complete your task very quickly. The challenge is always for the tail. It's not customized for your own need. If you have natural language interface, you can bring information that's deeper, hidden, that cannot be accommodated by your menu. That two combined will make your user experience much more interesting. Whatever is frequent should be on the menu, on the top, in your face. But you can never accommodate all the things customized for different users. And if you can chat using bot to actually complete a task, those two combined will be extremely powerful.
In terms of a user experience, though, kind of going in a tangential direction, and this applies more to machine learning in general, but almost all NLP is done with machine learning these days, or mostly. One of the great things about NLP and building interfaces in that sense is it allows you to be quickly reactive to how your users actually use your app. Like, I can go in and assume how somebody's going to say something, and if they come in and say it in a different way, even if my app doesn't understand it, if I'm building it through machine learning and I'm doing good logging of the interfaces with my app, I can very easily go in, take what the user said, figure out as a human, oh, they really meant this, tell my classifier, hey, it means that, and now my app has gotten smarter, I've brought in more training data, I've started seeing it, I've allowed it to be used in the way that the consumer, the customer, the user has decided to use it, as opposed to the way where I've said, these are the ways that you are going to get in here, go for it. Because they might ask for a new feature this way, they might figure out a new way to say things, and if you're just doing it all through training as opposed to writing hard-coded rules, it's very fast to adapt to new situations.
The 57 ways to say hello rule.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, just back to the original question about use cases, you kind of inspired one that we tell a lot of customers that when someone goes to a website, if they leave, why did they leave? You don't really know, right? You don't know why they clicked X. Could they not find what they wanted? Did they find what they wanted but it was not good news? Or was it good news and they were happy? With natural language and having that interface over the top, you know exactly when they left, you know exactly what they were doing. You can really figure out if they were happy or sad. So as far as a use case, you can learn a lot more about how your users are using your product, and kind of their experience with it. Whereas on a website, you're tracking clicks, but you don't know what they're thinking or feeling, and you can really get that through natural language.
Yeah, and that's the bot and chatbot initiative that many folks have, like a user explaining their intent specifically, either in verbal speech or written form. It helps learn much more what they want. What I will do is one more question for the past, and then we'll go to the audience. So if you can think of any questions, we'll bring it up. In terms of quality, thinking quality around a conversational agent, conversational app. If any of the folks from the audience ends up using NLP tools, and any of the tools that you guys may offer, how should they measure quality? How should they think around, this is a success case, this is working as I wanted, or this might not be working, what can I improve? There are many bots being created nowadays, and hundreds, thousands. None of the great quality, we all know that. And but there's room to continue to improve. How should people think around a good experience and what that should mean, but taking into consideration language and the interaction? Anthony, you can start with that.
I'd say at least one thing right now, and this is kind of a context of the times, is the best bots that I've seen recently have all been very simple and very narrow in scope. And so this allows the developers to very dive down and be very focused on I'm using very a lot, I'm turning into Trump. It allows you to dive down into a focused area of some project, like I believe it's Huang has weather, and all they do is weather. Weather forecasts, but very specific things. But you can ask it now, it said, oh, there's a weather alert, and you can say, what's a weather alert? I have no idea what a weather alert is, and it'll explain you its jargon. But really, to get back to what is successful, if you see yourself building an app for a specific purpose and you keep branching and branching and branching and getting bigger and trying to cover more and more and more and more tiny, sorry, my microphone went away from my mouth, edge cases, in a way, and this has partly to do with NLP and partly to do with bot design, you've probably promised too much of your app than it can currently deliver with the technology that we have. So even though a lot of this is about using our technology to do the best we can, we also have to learn how to set expectations. So don't take like conversational NLP as this end-all be-all. You just need to give more and more and more and more examples, and eventually, you know, it'll be the best Siri ever. If you find yourself doing that, you probably haven't defined your scope well, and then your app is probably just going to flop because users are going to get frustrated that it doesn't do what they want it to do.
So quality, limited scope.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's very useful to look at some measures of dialogue system success in this case. So, you know, if you are specifically or an app that has a specific task, you want to enable a user to accomplish that task in as few interactions as possible. You know, again, the order form versus like having to do 5 text messages. But that's on the one side of a very task-oriented app. PullString, like I mentioned, built a conversational story, and in that case, our measure of success was actually we want people to spend more time doing this, not get in, understand what it's about, and then leave. We wanted, you know, our measure of success in that case was how long did they keep playing it? They, you know, when they reached the end of the experience, were they interested in going back and finding out the other things that could have happened if they, you know, told her to chase the boy or whatever, you know, and so it's very dependent on when you say a conversational NLP system, are you talking about you want to create conversation or you want to use conversation to accomplish a task?
And guys, you don't see it from there, but Laurel has a necklace. That is a bot.
Yes.
So it's very funny. It's cute. Thank you for that. So then engagement. I said quality, engagement can drive, can give us information around the quality. Right. Any other ideas on what quality might be in language and in a conversational environment?
I think they're all great points. I stole my thunder on a couple of them, but the points I'd add to it is a lot of this stuff is same problems, but it's a new interface. So it's looking at things like cognitive load. How much extra work is there in actually trying to figure these things out? How quickly can people get through conversations? Is there ways that you can avoid asking questions because you've already gained that data in the past? One of the ways people often refer to bots and use the phrase things like personal assistant and things in the same sentences. They're talking about wider ranging bots. But if you've gone and spoken to a flight search bot once and it knows where you live, then it should try and pre-guess that that's probably where you want to fly from. If you've told it at some point you're a vegan, it should remember that fact for the dietary meal and perhaps mention it, but then not re-ask you it. And basically keep, the more that you use it, the better you get. But yeah, you are in this strange place where if it's task-orientated, one of the signs of success is how quickly it's over, and if it's engagement-orientated, it's how quickly it's not over. So.
Okay, so then quality there might be on one hand persistence, knowing the user continuing, and then maybe shorter duration.
Yeah, so one of the things that always comes up, and I'm so glad we finally got a bot we can actually order pizza with, so thank you Pizza Hut for finally doing this. But there's been so many platforms that built a pizza demo, and yet the ultimate pizza demo in my book is always I'm hungry, get me pizza, and that's it. And it knows how to take the payment, it knows where you live, it knows what your favourite pizza is. That's the ultimate demo of a pizza bot, not the ability to actually have the conversation.
Yeah, you have to get there.
Yeah, and also going off some of the stuff that you guys were talking about too is I think that it's important for it to be contextually relevant, so it should be taking into account what you're talking about. You should be able to switch between different dialogue flows, just like when you're talking to another human and they understand that that you were talking about the weather and navigation and other things and switching back and forth. It should be able to take that into account where you are in the user interface, think of your preferences as they mentioned, so all of these should be known and be considered in the design process.
Thanks.
So I just want to add, in terms of quality, I really think that the intent, understanding, the ability to recognize the entity, those are the foundational piece. On top of that, then you can talk about the dialogue strategy, your personality, your memory. Even if your memory is poor, and if you can understand the last few things, it's understandable. You have older people, when you talk to older people, they have poor memory. But if you can't even understand the current utterance, you'll be screwed.
Great, thank you.
So use something that works.
Thanks, yeah. So now open up for questions. Stefan?
Yeah, I have a direct follow-up question. You mentioned personality, which... Hi, I'm Stefan. I'm a co-founder of Giant. We're trying to do a health bot. I have a question that we discussed in our founding team about personality of bots. What's your perspective on how important is personality on one hand, and how much does personality, because it takes longer, should get in the way of getting things done, or is it an important part of the experience?
I love this question, and this is a fantastic question. You know, it's almost like if you're asking, if you fall in love with someone, what is the reason? You don't have a reason, you just fall in love with the person, right? So look at the Microsoft experience. We actually had two personality. One is Cortana, it's more, you know, goal-oriented, get the work done. The other one is Xiao. We only practice this in China. You know what happened to Tay in the US, right? It's not that good. But the Xiao is loved by different kinds of people in China. Very different from Cortana. So those two are really different personalities. We do have actually a marketing message. We call them, those two are sisters. One is good at solving problems with good IQ. One is good at just keep you chatting with good EQ. So those actually are the personality we engineered into two bots. Those are actually a series of two bots, just, you know, they are for different purposes.
Any other response?
Yeah, so I think until very recently there was a lot of interest from brands to have basically a very like neutral, you're talking to a robot and you get your task done or whatever you want. And then they came to realize, oh, we spend all this money on marketing and our bot's personality is part of that marketing. For something specific like health, doctors spend a lot of time on bedside manner, and your bot should probably be the same. You know, like, should I be talking to a robot about my human state of being, or should I be talking to someone friendly who's interested in my health concerns? So I think it's exactly, you want to create the personality that's exactly like the human that you would be interacting with in that particular service, or maybe a little bit better.
I think a lot of it can depend ultimately if it can make the engagement better, like you were saying. If it can, then great. And there's a really interesting example of this that a lot of you in here will know Poncho, or have seen Poncho. Now, some people absolutely love Poncho and the fact that it's these interactions and it's got a real character to it. Some people can't stand it because it's like, I just want to know what the weather is. Why are you messing around and telling me you're sleeping? And so a lot of it depends on the audience and who you're trying to get to. But I do agree with your point in the same with healthcare. If you think you're talking to a bot that's acting like an angry nurse who's got nothing better to do than just bark questions at you versus a nice, genial doctor that has got the time and is getting it, that will make a difference in how people interact. But it really does depend on that use case and whether it can add true value in doing it.
And just another thing I feel to keep in mind is, as much as we all know these are bots, and they're advertised as bots, and it's obvious to a lot of people that they're bots, people still often seem to treat some forms of technology, and especially in this case conversational technology, which is going to feel intimate, as humans. You know, we probably, a lot of us saw this story of the lady in England who began every Google search with, please Google, will you find this? Thank you very much. And every single year for 10 years, because she thought somebody was on the other end of it. And if we were going to be building bots for the world, not just for those of us who are deep in technology, personality does kind of come into it. If your bot makes it feel like you're not bugging me, I'm doing this for you, that's probably going to help with engagement. But if it tries to chat you up a bunch, it can come across as annoying. But people confuse technology for humans and want to personify it.
Thank you. Follow your question.
Yeah, so we build a conversational productivity set of apps for Slack and we're going to port to our platform. So we build our own NLP for now. Now we want to try to, maybe expand the capability of our product, and we're looking basically all the platform sitting here. And so can you spend like 30 seconds each one of you saying why we should pick you? Let's make it interesting, right? No, honestly, we are looking at basically all of you. So
are you from Slack? Sorry? Are you from Slack?
No, no.
What's your company name?
My company is called Kyber, the product, so we build for Slack right now. We've been featured
As a platform, on right
Yeah.
hand side. So who else is looking at NLP tools? Show of hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now we are.
And who is actually using an NLP tool in their conversational application? One? You guys are using it. Okay. So I think it's a fair question. Maybe 30 seconds. The 30-second pitch, why they should use your tool. Thank you. And you're, Christina, the first one.
All right, sure. The easiest reason for us is because it works. Seriously.
I know your story.
Okay.
So Lewis is unique in the sense that you don't need to program. We have a virtual cycle of learning. We know NLP is a hard problem. Most of the time it doesn't work. But the coverage is the key. And we actually let you accumulate data you label through active learning. You can actually continuously improve the system. So the workload to offer the system is very small. You don't need to actually have any computer knowledge. You can hire anyone. What are the example sentences? And what are the meaning of the entity intent? The more you label, the better you get.
So I think the reality is right now, the NLP needs of most of this audience right now could probably be handled quite easily by anyone sitting here, and that's the reality. So I don't think there's necessarily anything that, oh, ours is 10% quicker than that one, or ours knows more words than that one. It's not, because a lot of it comes down to the individual training. I would look at the other pieces of the puzzle that are being bundled with that, whether that's the integrating of the platforms, or whether it's dialogue management, or whether it's the level of technical knowledge you need, or the flexibility you get out of it. And I'm not saying that any one is better, that there's different audiences for different ones. For example, Wit is a much more developer-focused one. Ours, we emphasize the fact that you can build a bot without needing to write code at all, but it's flexible enough that if you want to write code, you can extend it. So I think there's plenty of room for everyone, but it depends on the bits outside of NLP, I think, rather than that piece itself.
So the strongest advantage that WIT has right now is that we really work on doing the conversational aspect from end to end, allowing you to build example stories of these interactions that you want to have, and then actually not following them when we can, but then jumping around in them when needed, when the user has already given information, so we don't prompt them for things twice. But on top of that, yeah, we work, and we're easy to use just like everybody else in that you just tag data and it goes. In almost all these cases, everybody that I've worked, or all the platforms that I've used up here, it's very straightforward in that you don't need to actually code it. You just give examples and you don't need an NLP expert. And as you said, all of us can offer that.
Yeah, works, easy to use, all the good stuff. I think also what sets PullString apart is that you can build both, very simple, like command and execution structures, as well as very detailed, sort of dialogue systems that are very, very complex, and have a non-technical interface into that. And that visualization is somewhat unusual for the field at this point, depending on what your app is. That may or may not be interesting to you. But I mean, yeah, you shouldn't. For our system, you don't need to hire a developer just to maintain your bot. A writer writes in it directly and can even do all the publishing for you. And we also, we allow you to use our machine learning to make the writing process simpler, but we also let you go in and like, if you want full control over exactly everything that it's doing, we give you an interface to do that as well. And it's that really, like, whatever degree of control you want, that's what you can get from PullString.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of nailed it. We all have great tooling, so I think the main differentiator for Watson is all of the other services that we allow you to host. So if you want someone's personality from a block of text, we offer that. If you want to get the tone of their sentence, we offer that. If you want to search a corpus, of a document, we offer that, as well as the base conversation. So expanding into all the other pieces of the use case that you need to give a good experience, we have tools and services that you can combine easily to satisfy your users.
I would strongly recommend trying all of them.
Thank you, guys. Question, yeah. No, yeah, your name and company name.
Alexis, Blue Filter. Yeah, so I know there's a lot of hype around bots and conversation-based interactions right now, and I've got the impression from a lot of what you've said that, that they work well for certain interactions, and this sort of jives with my intuition that a lot of people are imagining them for interactions where they're not suitable. I don't know as much about this space as I'd like, so I guess what I'd really like to know is like, what are the best examples right now where you can see this technology like in the best light, doing things that it does really well? And you guys have mentioned a sort of spectrum between kind of task-oriented, I'm trying to find something or get something done, and then this very intriguing idea of bots that people just talk to for the fun of it. So, I mean, I would love it. Maybe you guys agree on this, maybe you don't. Like, what's the best example that I can interact with right now of an English language bot that does something meaty and task-oriented on one end, and on the other end, engaging, charming, keeping me on the phone, just something that's nice to talk to. Because I'd like to have a concrete experience to inform that. So I was wondering what you guys think is the best practice, best thing I can see right now.
Really depends on how much effort you want to put on that. If you have a huge amount of effort, you can use Lewis to create a Cortana. That's how serious you can let this to be. But if you're not serious, you don't have enough data, you are going to label, then focus on some simple application.
Well, I'm interested in seeing what's the best thing someone else has already made. Not what can I make right now, but what's the best output that these tools can produce right now? So this is like state of the art. It's not from these tools, from research entities, like where would I go to see how good it can be?
So, as I said, there are about 15,000 apps created by Lewis, and they vary a lot. And most of them are typical command and control kind of services.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen one yet that truly is amazing. That to your criteria of having that engaging and being able to deal with things. I'm still waiting on that. It will come, but right now the average, if I was scoring out of 10, the average bot I've played with, I wouldn't give much more than 3, although I'm sure there are nuggets of ones out there that I've not seen yet. So I'm sure there is something great, but I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, I think until recently, my target for a good bot that's task-oriented is, did I basically not notice that interaction? So it's hard to say, oh yeah, that was a great interaction because, good design should be 99% invisible, right, I strongly prefer things that are oriented towards entertainment. I'm in the group that should find Poncho entertaining, and I really like our PullString powers Hello Barbie, and that's a conversation where the task is to have fun with the child, and it's a very complex conversation, and I think it does a really good job of, here are all these games that we can play just using voice, and that's my favorite one.
My favorite bot right now, unfortunately, but you might call it a Cybot, is M. Now, unfortunately, I can't let you play with that right now. After that, though, the things that are actually really good are the things that we have in our pockets right now. Siri, Cortana, OK Google. They aren't super conversational, but in terms of NLP understanding and giving you a little bit of funny banter when they want to, Siri pushing back at you when you're a little rude to it, pretty good experience. They're still building on the context and understanding when you refer back to something you said before, that's probably going to come in like a week because you know how fast Apple works. But actually, yeah, I'm really happy with those 3, and I think they're good examples to build off of.
If you haven't tried it, on Android, the highest rated virtual assistant across platforms is called Assistant.ai, and it was our first product that was launched actually about 6 months before Siri was launched by Apple.
I couldn't believe you waited that long to mention Barbie. I remember reading about it in a magazine, and it was like Teen Vogue or some weird magazine. I'm reading it. New York Times. I'm reading it in my office, and people are walking by like, "What the heck are you reading?" And I'm like, "No, it's actually work." It's super cool though. So everyone should go check out the Barbie that talks. As far as the cooler apps that I've seen, Alaska Airlines actually has a really good one built by, I think, Nuance. It just works well. It's about booking a flight. It's not super impressive. I think any one of us could build something pretty similar. They've had it for a long time and it works well, so I like that one. And the third one that I'm most proud of is, it was an old customer from my last company, who's now on Watson. They're called the Project Factory out of Australia, and they built a game where you go in, someone got arrested, and they're going to be interrogated. They say, no, I'll only talk to you as the person, and you get to, it's just fun. Sometimes it gets kind of tripped up, I'll be honest, but it's just an interesting use case to say, here's a game that I'm playing in natural language.
Great, thank you. Do you have a question?
Before I start to ask my question, it's more like on the bot. I'm happy that the bots so far are really simple, because I found like so many apps are asking to download the whole app, which is about 100 megabytes, to just get a really simple information. Sometimes you just want to add like on Telegram or Facebook Messenger or even just text message. You just want to add a contact and ask your question quickly without having to download the whole app. So on that part, I think having both really simple is really good for me. Now my question is like, I'm French and my parents are Arabic and they talk a dialect, the Chinese are a dialect. How it goes with other languages? Like everything is in English and it's good. Whenever I try with other languages, it sucks. What are you thinking in terms of, I would say as a second question related to that. It's related to that. Teenagers may use a different language than the common English, while even some words are not in the dictionary. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's the great thing about a lot of these platforms is they're actually fairly basically language agnostic. Like we pretend like we understand what's going on, but really we're just kind of like matching phrases. And since it's all training data, if your users are teens and your teens use it this way and you log that data, you just put it right into your training app, and the new funny word of the day is schwazzle. And somebody says schwazzle to it. I have no idea what schwazzle is. Nobody can define schwazzle, but your bot, you've already shown that it maps to these intents or what have you, and that's all it really needs to know. And also getting to your download size thing, it doesn't matter how big a bot is. You're querying a server. Like I've got my messenger. If there's a huge bot on the other side, it's nice for it to be focused and nice, but I don't have to download your app every time I query your giant server. You just send me back your response.
Language support, Louis has several languages, I think Watson as well. What about how many languages do you guys support?
We support 15 different languages, and we're currently implementing ways that you can create it, say, in English, and then automatically or semi-automatically roll that out into all the other languages.
How many, do you remember Louis' support? How many languages?
For
More or less.
For speech, we have about 20, including Arabic. Okay, we have Arabic speech recognition. I think in terms of language coverage, Google probably is the broadest. I just want to give you the honest assessment. Microsoft is also pretty good. Louis will have a major, English, French, Chinese, etc. It's small.
Well, 20. And then do you remember what?
No. Louis doesn't have 20.
Louis doesn't have 20. I think he has at least 7. Four. What we saw last session. Do you remember Watson more or less?
Conversation specifically has 5 right now. We have G8 on Monday though, so we have a roadmap of 20 through the next year, and we have other services that do over 20. We have a translation service. Honestly, I think it's like playing telephone, where if you translate, do some magic in the middle, and translate back. It's not perfect, but in theory it works.
Xuedong mentioned Skype as well, the translation that happens in Skype, synchronous. Yeah.
So ours is the same as the other Tony was saying. It's agnostic in the design, so it just depends on the training data. But talking about teenagers, we have some other really interesting things about. So we had a customer deploy this morning that actually an awful lot of the communication on they've got a private messaging network for teenagers, and up to sort of 25, and a lot of it's done by stickers and GIFs talking to each other. So we've actually taught it to understand what a GIF is and how to react to the different pictures. So if someone's saying yes versus no, and it actually understands, or hello, or you're having a good day, and all those kind of things. And that's equally another way that people have to think about it.
Yeah, different language.
Yeah, it is a language itself, yeah.
On that note of language support, I believe WIT right now supports right around 12 languages for speech, and north of 30, maybe around 50 for NLP. I can't remember the exact number, right around 50.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi, my name is Fode, and I'm a local entrepreneur by way of Senegal, West Africa, and my question is for the gentleman from Microsoft. You mentioned earlier that the most important breakthrough recently has been the cloud computation for NLP. Where I'm from, there's a problem with connectivity always, right? Because in that part of the world, it's just the biggest, like the most dominant cloud platform is mostly Google App Engine or Google Cloud Platform. I was curious to know, do you see in the future a lot of some of the computation being offloaded maybe to the mobile device, because a lot of the phones these days, especially some of these Android devices, have 8 cores or more even, you know? So can some of the computation actually be done on the phone itself and maybe before it gets sent over the wire, or do you see most of it being sent just on the cloud and being processed on the cloud and like return the result or whatever basically?
That's a great question. I have to tell you how old I am now. The first speech recognizer I created was running on Apatow. That took 640K. I used the TMS 320 DSP chip. Together with Apatow, we actually had the first Chinese dictation system. And the first speech recognizer we did at Microsoft took 1 meg runtime on Windows 95. 1 meg. So that kind of computing capability was what we're consuming in the cloud. There's no comparison. But one day, your device will be so powerful, and the technology is also advancing. Right? For deep learning, for example, for inference, you do not need a kind of precision. You just, neural nets are very robust. You cut the half of the brain, it's still kind of working. It's just not working as well. But you cut one third, it works fine, looks fine. So I believe in the future it's always a hybrid. But the cloud is so powerful because of the computing. You have just so many supercomputers combined in the cloud that will actually serve you and watch what's going on. The cloud is really on big data, that capability is hard to be packaged together in the device. But the speech recognition, for example, natural language understanding, LUIS, can run on the client easily after training. After you actually harvest a huge amount of data, you build your model, you can actually download the stuff on the client. We're not supporting that capability yet, but that doesn't mean it's not something we should not consider.
Actually, we have already ported our full NLU, both speech recognition and NLU, to embedded devices earlier this year. So we're ready.
Questions? Okay. How are we doing with time? Do we want more questions? Okay. Let's do a couple more. Your name and company.
Hi, I'm Anna Wittigam, VidCrunch. I'm a computational linguist, so I want to go all technical on you. First of all, does your application use bigger emoji? And my second question is shallow parsing or actual syntactic parsing for your application?
I'm in marketing, so I honestly have no idea.
I can answer that question. My official title is Distinguished Engineer at Microsoft, so I'm an engineer by training. And LUIS is not using parsing at all. LUIS is actually using active learning, create a conditional random field model, that's an underlying model, CRF. And that's the model, that's the state of the art in most entity extraction, intent understanding. But we do have a deep learning system that uses parsing. If you search Microsoft Deep QA, on Bing or Google, that one uses a very deep parsing, but that's not the one we're using, we're shipping. It's just, we have ongoing research. I believe deep learning is going to change a lot of stuff. That's, and the performance will be much better than anything we have ever seen, but it's not ready in the form that we can consume yet.
Follow-up for deep learning, character embedding or word embedding?
We use both. And actually, in terms of training, you'll be amazed at what kind of data we used. We are able to embed almost, several billion documents. Even every document has embedding.
Hey, Arun Rao, Evolution Tools, an NLP startup here. Question, just from each of your platforms, I bet you're seeing a range of really interesting companies. I'm just curious if you could share an example, either anonymous or the company's name, of somebody who's gotten really good traction that you think is doing something non-obvious or interesting with your tool.
Well, just to reiterate the one I mentioned before, Hello Hipmunk, I think is a really cool thing, the ability to pull out of an email your flights. The other fun bot that's actually coming up right now, I believe it's called Ganglia. It's out of India. It's for following cricket matches. And it's getting really strong traction, and people seem to be liking it, and nobody in the US builds cricket bots, so I thought that was really cool that somebody was doing that.
Oh, that's just made my days. It's cricket fan.
Alright.
Yeah, I'll go check it out. Yeah. So the interesting thing for us is a lot of the companies we deal with are building things that you wouldn't necessarily call bots, but are using the same technology and are still using some problems in the same way. There's one Bay Area company, I'll be very vague because it's big enough that it's well known, that has a re-engagement challenge with their users, and they have hundreds of thousands of users that aren't actively engaged, people that they can normally earn money from, but when they're not engaged, they don't earn money from. And they're looking at ways that they can actually, that the current way of re-engaging is using humans to literally get on the phone and try and pin these people down to get them re-engaged. And they're looking at ways that they can use bots to basically streamline that entire process. And what's particularly interesting about that model is they're not looking at it as a way of saving costs. They're looking at ways of changing the unit economics of the engagement. And so in doing so, they're talking about hiring dozens and dozens of new people because it will actually, to fulfill the human piece that still remains in that role, because it will actually make it much more affordable for them to then just keep growing. So with all the talk of actually bots removing jobs, it's quite interesting to see what one company's getting very excited about how it will actually create them.
Yeah, sorry to go back to Hello Barbie, but I think talking doll is both obvious and non-obvious, so like making it so that you can have a two-way conversation, that's pretty new. Only Barbie and maybe a couple other ones have done that. And then sort of within that is, I have seen multiple people putting up, video reviews of Barbie saying that using that toy had helped their child or cousin or whatever develop past their social anxiety. And so that was a really touching use of a conversational interface to me. And I've seen, I don't know about traction per se, but another company that's using conversation as a form of therapy. And I really hope that takes off as well.
So for Louis, I think the best product is a Microsoft Bot framework, and that will enable you to really create whatever you want.
So we do one more question? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Arjun. I'm actually building a bot that gives you, acts as a tour guide and gives you tours in the city. And you touched upon a very exciting concept for me, which is memory and being able to hold context of make the bot have context for more than just a minute or something. What is the best practices right now, or is there anything out of the box that any of your tools provide, or what can we do to get started on that?
So internally, we have to invest on the infrastructure. When you have a long conversation, you have to have the ability to index what happened, if you said something, mentioned something, right? And a good way to really represent this whole thing in the academic deep learning community is memory network.
So API.ai, there's 3 ways that you can leverage context really easily in API.ai. First of all, we have domains which are out-of-the-box functionality, and they're already contextually relevant and understand tons of different use cases. Things like asking about weather, wisdom, small talk, all sorts of things. And they maintain the conversation flow automatically with no work. Then we have a function called slot filling. So with one single intent, you can basically carry a full nonlinear dialogue flow where you're getting pieces of information, say booking a flight and you need to know where they are, where they're going, and all that stuff. All of that context is managed internally, and it's pretty complex, but we're able to do that on our side. And then we have the ability for you to completely control the flow of context. And basically, as I said before, contexts are like topics in discussion. You can have an unlimited amount of topics in discussion that are currently active, and they decay with after a certain lifespan. So either a certain period of time or a certain number of requests. So it's very, very easy.
So with Converse, it's fairly similar in terms of those bits that Christina just described as to how we work. Probably the other piece is the ability to easily switch between two sets of conversations back and forwards, like talking about the weather and then looking at restaurants and being able to go back and forward, but also being able to store data directly within our platform if you want to, against a particular conversation, against a user, in the platform in general. So, as I say, if you have a user comes along and says that they're looking for a restaurant, they say they're vegan, and then they come along later on, they want to book a flight, then actually, although it's an entirely separate conversation, it can actually pick up that data from before and actually reuse it, so you're not having to ask those kind of questions again.
Okay. I just want to add one thing. Microsoft Louis right now is a single term-based language understanding services. Multi-term is actually by imitation only, so this is a work in progress. I just want to actually make sure you don't get confused.
We used to store state for you in some of the legacy APIs, but it became too resource intensive. 50 concurrent users would ruin our public servers because we're holding context for every conversation that's ever been had. So we recently redid our APIs, and that's kind of one of the big benefits of the new conversation service. So it's all stateless, but there's a context section that you can store really whatever you want. You can throw it in there from some other service. If you have a Salesforce database of your customers, just throw it in there, just pull it out and put it into the conversation. Now you can know their name and things like that. So now it's all stored actually in the API call back and forth, maintained through the life of the conversation. And if you wanted to use a SQL DB service on our site, you're more than welcome to store it there. It's really on the client to store though.
If you want to do, when you want to do conversational bots with WIT, the way it keeps track of what's going on is first you have sessions with every one of the users, and it kind of has an idea of the history of where they've been. But then on top of that, you have kind of a back and forth context exchange where when the user says something, WIT might pull some information out of their thing and put it in that context, which is then sent back to your server along with a command like, oh, they want to know something about the weather. You need to tell me what the weather is, and then your server, however it figures out what the weather is, does that and sends it back. So it's kind of this back and forth, almost secondary conversation between WIT and your server, keeping track of everything that's been going on in the conversation, what the relevant things are, the things you want to remember for the future, and so on.
Yeah, same for PullString of that it will remember your conversation state and the whole dialogue tree that you've been through, and you can store specific pieces of information that you can then recall later, as well as having the ability to have a sort of interjection that you pop into maybe a different conversation, and then you can write a segue to get back into the conversation you were in before, and then you just have this stack of conversations that you're popping off of. And so you can store conversation state that way.
Great. Well, I think that should do it for tonight. Thank you, Galvanize, for the and thank you each one of the speakers for making that tonight. And hopefully you stay for a minute or two around to chat with folks. Thank you, everyone.